name's Michelle Margatai, and I'm with Refuge for Women Pittsburgh. We just opened an emergency home here in Pittsburgh, the first ever emergency home for women who have been sexually exploited and trafficked. We are a national organization. We have helped over 400 women since 2009 from 23 states. We work with all law enforcement, and the reason why we're here is because we kept getting pulled into Pittsburgh and the Pittsburgh region by local, state, and federal law enforcement because they had nowhere to take women once they were identified. So we're on the back end. But I wanted to talk with you first. If you could, we should have shown this at the very beginning. Yeah, this is a trigger warning. Hey guys, guess what? We're gonna talk about a lot of really difficult stuff tonight. We're a trauma-informed program, and it's really important that you understand that because this is the most complex trauma. In fact, there's a research study that shows that sex trafficking is more complex than being a prisoner in war. Some people say, well, why doesn't the domestic violence shelters, they can help them. When we said we were coming to Pittsburgh, Women's Center and Shelter gave us office space and said, please open this shelter. Yes, there might be some kind of interpersonal or domestic violence in the relationship, but that is not all that is going on in a sex trafficking or exploitation situation. I think we went backwards or something. Oh, yeah. Here, I'm going to show you something. The number one thing, let me really quick before I start. Why am I here? I don't work for the FBI, so I can be videotaped and I can talk to you, and I can also talk to you because I have an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old. I am here because a couple of years ago, someone very close to me was sexually assaulted. And this person had a loving family, a great support network, fantastic teachers, health care, and almost killed herself for 2 years. So when I say that this can happen, now this person was not sex trafficked, but then I heard about this organization that was trying to open an emergency home, and I thought, what happens to the people out there who don't have any of that? How do they help? So one thing that I'm constantly talked about when I talk to parents like myself is my kids, I just don't let them use the phone unless I'm with them. They're not allowed to take their phones up to their room. They're not allowed to, we monitor their phones. So let me show you this quick video.
Hey, honey. How was your day?
It's good.
Good. We have about an hour or so we're going to run some errands.
Okay, got it.
And then we'll go pick up Ellie.
Sounds good.
Did you have your math quiz today?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, good. And how did it go?
I think I did pretty good. I feel good about it.
Oh, all right, great. Hey, hon.
Hi, Mom.
Did you have a good day?
Mm-hmm.
Good. You look so cute.
Thank you.
So I had a crazy day today. It seems like one thing after another. Hillary. Hello. Yes, hi. It's your mother.
Sorry, Mom.
Okay.
Hmm?
You all right?
Yeah.
Hey, hon. Hillary?
Eventually, he convinced me to sneak out on weekends to meet him. He used the nudes as blackmail to coerce me into sexual acts with his friends. I never thought a single nude would lead me into sex trafficking.
So obviously, some of that has already been detailed out by our friends at the FBI, but I do think it's important because I know I've sat in the car with my daughter before, and you can feel when something is on their mind, and you're not quite sure what to do as a parent. So can you go forward, keep going? We've already talked about what sex trafficking is. For those of you who are, I'm 56, so the language is this: pimps are now sex traffickers. Prostitutes, unless they are independent sex workers, which is a thing, if they have a pimp, they are being sex trafficked. All right? So the language, it's different now because of this law. Next slide, please. I have to raise money for that emergency home. It's about $1 million budget every year. I'll explain why in a couple minutes. And one of the reasons why I have to is because we need funding to help these women who actually get themselves extricated from the life. But we also need data to raise money. People don't just give us money because we say that there's something going on. We ask the FBI if they'll give us information. We love the FBI. They don't give us any information because it's all tied up in court. Very much so. Totally get it. Got it. This is as much as we've got. 1,897 cases of human trafficking. This is from the National Human Trafficking. This is just in Pennsylvania. Safe House Project, who did that video, there's a 1% report rating that people are saying that there's only about 1% of cases. So if you extrapolate that out, we're at 19,200 people in Pennsylvania are trafficked. I've been trying to get them to define whether that's sex and labor. They haven't gotten back to me yet. Still, I go based on more than one. What are we doing? Next slide, please. These are just some of the headlines in the last couple of years. Notice the FBI. Also, we talked about Taken. Who here has seen Taken? Okay, who here has seen Sound of Freedom? Okay. First of all, Taken, just please don't ever rely on that as a documentary because it makes our lives miserable. Sound of Freedom is a great movie, but it also is perpetuating this myth that it only happens over there. Or if it happens here, it's with people from over there. that come here in shipping containers. Which, yes, there is something to that, but no. Next slide, please. In the reality, only 6% are through abduction, and 50% are through someone that person knows. 50%. I'm going to go a little bit quickly here because I know we want to have time for questions and answers. Here's another reality. When you look at the number of cases of sexual abuse files that have been, sexual abuse cases that have been filed, and when you know that sexual abuse is one of the pre-indicators of someone who has gone through trauma in their past and therefore may become vulnerable to being manipulated, we've gone from 450,000 to 70 million. Next slide. When I say, and we've said this, but it's worth saying again, sex trafficking happens in the city, in the suburbs, in the rural areas, black, white, ethnicity, religion. It happens everywhere. Next slide, please. And again, not to reiterate, but what are they looking for? This is where I ask you to not look at your child from your perspective, right? I am in a loving relationship with my husband. I have 2 great kids. We have a house. We have a family. We have a dog. We have a homicidal cat. We have a great life. But if I actually had someone talk to my daughter or my son, what would they say? What's going on in their minds? What pressures are they feeling? And I think one of the mistakes that I know I've made is to not remember what it was like in high school and middle school. All of those feelings of wanting to belong, not being pretty enough, not this, not that, what about this, what about that, the pressures. And now, of course, we have social media that just adds on to all of it. So really taking a look at it from the child's perspective and not just your own perspective, and you might see something. Because when I ask that question, the next thing I say is, close your eyes, just for a second. Just close them. Think of somebody you know who is vulnerable right now. Maybe they're just got out of a bad relationship or a relationship. Maybe they're seeking love. Maybe they have low self-esteem. Maybe they have medical issues. Maybe their parents don't have enough money. Maybe they don't have, maybe they have depression. Maybe they have some kind of learning disability that they're struggling with. Those are all vulnerabilities that a sex trafficker will take advantage of, because that is what they do. The second thing I'd ask you to do is to please not think of your children as children on this topic, because sex traffickers don't. They are commodities. And I use this as an example because of the van. Because the van and the Walmart posts drive me nuts. 2 people followed me in Walmart and they were really sketchy looking, and oh my gosh, everybody be afraid of Walmart. Okay? Yeah, who has had that in their feed? Let's see it. Raise them high, raise them proud. Come on, let's go. We've all seen it. Okay. Fact of the matter is, let's think of this as a business. Sex trafficking in the U.S. is a $9.6 billion business. $9.6 billion in just our country. Who here works for a company? Okay. If I'm an entrepreneur and I'm going to open up a store and sell radios, I need to go get inventory. I need to go get some radios. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a van and 2 sketchy dudes, and I'm going to go to Walmart, and we're going to go into Walmart and steal the radios and throw them in the van, despite all the cameras, and we're going to get them to see, that's how we're going to take them to our place of business and we're going to sell them. Good business strategy? I think not. How about this for a strategy? I'm going to sit in front of a computer. I'm going to have a bunch of people sit in front of computers, and I'm just going to talk. And I'm just going to research. And I'm going to find everything that I can about this kid. And I'm just going to strike up a conversation. And I'm going to find out who their other is. What is their other? And I'm going to befriend them and be the one that they come to when they're in trouble. Nobody's going to know. I could be a 35-year-old man or a 47-year-old man in Las Vegas. So, phases of grooming. My husband often says, why don't they just leave? I have spent the night, our emergency home is a 24/7 home. Women come voluntarily. We have them for 90 days, and our job is to stabilize them. When they are identified, we don't use the word victim and we don't use the word rescue because we try to think like the survivors think, and we actually have survivors who work for us. They have survived sex trafficking, and they are victim, and I know that that's all legal language that law enforcement uses. But when they come to us, we have to take every electronic device away from them for 90 days. And we have to make sure that they do not leave the house without someone accompanying them, because they are so hooked on their trafficker. That relationship, that bond is so tight. We have to open all of their mail when it comes to a different address because we're at an undisclosed location. We open it and review it because I've sat and listened to phone conversations. They have certain phone numbers they're allowed to call because we have to break the bond between the trafficker and the survivor because it is that strong. We actually I don't want to say lost. One of our residents was just self-discharged on Friday. We'd only had her for 2 weeks, and she went back. And we know that the number is 7. 7 times is how many times they'll go back. 85% of them, I think that's the number, 85% of them, if everybody who is being trafficked today wanted to get out of the life, which it's called the life, there would be a shortage of 85% of them would not have a bed to go to. Okay, next slide. So, I learned how to use AI. So cool. And I say this because it's a disclosure. These are not people, the FBI has not sent me these photos. I made these photos up. I described in an AI program, blah, 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 and it came up with this picture. And guess what? I personally know of a case for each one of these demographics in this region. Not what you were thinking. Next slide. So let's talk about what we can do, all right? First of all, we need to get informed. And there are lots and lots of resources on that same thing that we really need to be careful with. Social media and the internet. Just as there's all kinds of bad stuff happening, there's also really good stuff happening, like the Dirty Dozen, which is every year the National Center on Sexual Exploitation puts this out, and it basically says, these are the biggest culprits. These are the companies that are not doing what we think is necessary to protect our children, which are not giving the tools for parental controls. And they have actually won. They have actually pressured companies into making changes. Not enough. But what it also does is it raises your awareness as a parent so that you know, like, Discord. My kids are so lucky that I got this job after they went to college because they both were playing Discord over the pandemic. It actually kept them sane. And little did I know that Discord is on here because it's a very easy way for someone, hey, I just want to play a video game and let's play a video game together and blah, blah, blah. And now all of a sudden they're talking to somebody who they think is from England, but he's from Alabama. Next slide, please. Okay, so resources. Take pictures of this. Here we go. Oh, good. It's on your handout. Yay. Okay, thank you for that. I know I've been doing this for 2 years now, and I do want to talk about the emergency home for a minute because it is important. I personally believe that every human being has intrinsic value, right? And if they want out, I'm not saying we save everybody, but if somebody wants out, we need to have a place for them to go. The reason why I decided to work for this organization is because it is a national organization that has been doing trauma-informed, best practice care at a national level. Las Vegas, Chicago, Kentucky, North Texas, Gulf Coast. That's where we have all of our locations. And Pittsburgh. And people are like, Pittsburgh, why Pittsburgh? Because Pittsburgh's a really great place to have a business. Within one day, you can get to 16 million people. You can just jump in your car and drive a girl to Detroit, to Chicago, to DC, to Baltimore. Also, we don't have a huge, I hope I'm saying this right, organized crime here. So you can be a guy with a house and access to some drugs and a car that you can drive around to homeless shelters and food banks and see single moms and go up to them and start buddying up with them. And next thing you know, you've got them back at your place, and you've already explained that case, and it happens. So when people are like, Pittsburgh, what? Huh? Totally Pittsburgh. We're a hub. I mean, it's happening here. What's not happening here is nobody's talking about it. I can say as the new kid on the block for the last 2 years, I've been doing fundraising and work in human services for almost 25 years. I've never had to start by explaining. Usually I walk in and I said, hey, homeless veterans, could you please help us? And they're like, yay. Now I walk in, I'm like, working with sex trafficking survivors, could you please help us? Well, that doesn't happen here. The lack of education that we have in this region as individuals, as parents, as women is unfathomable, and that makes us a prey for sex traffickers. So if I would ask you to do anything, it would be to check out these resources. On Watch has a great training program on how to identify. It's like modules. And it also has a fabulous handout that you can print, and it has age-appropriate conversations you can have with your child based on how old your child is. Because obviously we're not going to be having certain conversations, with a third grader, though I will tell you, it's getting earlier and earlier as we work with this. The Polaris Project has lots of data and stories, obviously the Dirty Dozen, and also educators. Educators are a huge group of people who see and know your children and will recognize if your kids are not themselves. My kids went to City of Pittsburgh Public Schools, and then my son finished up at Bishop Canavan. And I know that on many occasions, the educators were the ones who first raised the alarms. And so making sure that our educators, our medical professionals, I walk into every doctor's appointment and don't leave without explaining to the doctor about sex trafficking, because 80% of women who've been sex trafficked have been seen by a medical professional and not identified. These are obviously one-time researches, so maybe it's gone down. Obviously need help. So who has ever had that feeling of the hair on the back of your neck kind of going up, or your stomach kind of like, something is not right? Who? Yeah. Please put these phone numbers in your phone, because I would rather you make a phone call, and I will ask my friends, I would rather someone makes a phone call and be in error than not make a phone call. I had to do this myself in the neighborhood that I live in. I was concerned about 2 children who were living with a young woman, and based on the activity in the house, I could tell that there was something that was not right and not going on. And there's that whole thing of, oh my gosh, I don't want the kids to go into the system. That's going to be so bad. Well, there are other things that can be bad too. And I now mentor a 21-year-old and a 22-year-old who nobody ever called about them. And it wasn't until they were adults that they were able to get some mentoring help and some therapy. So please don't let that be what stops you from making a phone call. Next slide. Refuge for Women. We are at an undisclosed location in the city of Pittsburgh. We only hire, our staff is social workers, registered nurses. We make sure that we're not just doing good, we're doing right. Because when you have a complex trauma like this, you have to make sure that you're following curriculum-based and best evidence practices to help these women. So they go to therapy, we help them get IDs, we help them get health insurance, Sometimes we help them get in touch with their children. And after 90 days, they can graduate, and we will help them. They are hopefully stabilized enough. We're getting our drug and alcohol treatment license. They're stabilized enough that they can decide about what they want to do with their future for the first time in a very long time. I've covered some night shifts at the emergency house. Usually most of them start to wake up around 5 because that's when they need a cigarette, right? They get through the night. And so I'm there when they wake up. I did this for a week before Christmas. And all of these conversations that was shared with you earlier about he loved me, I thought that I didn't deserve anything better. These are the kinds of conversations that we have. We also limit everything, the types of movies, the types of music, because they've had so much negative in their life that we have to basically purge them of having all of this. And so from 8 until 5, they're in classes. They're in classes about setting boundaries and what is has anybody here had a conversation with their kid about what does a healthy relationship look like? I'm a Gen Xer. My parents never had that conversation with me. If you start from there, what do boundaries look like? Obviously, what does consent look like? What does a mean friend look like? So after the 90 days, they can go into long-term for a year, which we will be opening at some point. We have them in other locations. And that year, they're just working on trauma therapy for an entire year, a sober living community, 6 women with a house manager. And the goal is to really to undo the work that has been done to them. Well, I don't know if you can undo it, and then after that, they graduate and they go into transient housing, or they go into transitional housing. And that is where they are now starting to reintegrate into society, and they're going to school, or they have a job, or they're working a job so that they get enough money so they can have an apartment. But they're always coming back to a sober living community, 6 women and a house manager. So we actually have volunteers that come into our house. We started with the emergency house because that's what was needed by law enforcement. We probably will expand to the other 2 programs because we need it. For now, we've had 3 graduates. We opened in September of last year. We've had 3 graduates, and each of them have all gone on to 2-year programs. Because we're a national organization, we have relationships with programs across the country. And so they tell us, like, one of them didn't want to go to 17 states because of her experiences. So we had to find programs that weren't in those 17 states. So if you want to learn more, there's some cards and some information in the back. And I know that you guys had some questions specifically for our friends here at the FBI, so I will turn it over. And thank you so much, and just try to bring it up. It's a hard subject, but if there's a time to have a courageous conversation, it's now. Thank you.